This here's the Warlord, one half of the powers of pain. You better listen, or I'm coming for you.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better. These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right. Welcome to another wrestling podcast. I'm Steve Credo.
And I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And this is episode 102. Oh, Jonathan, my head hurts. It's been a long weekend of WrestleMania. I'm a little bit hungover from the whole event. And I didn't even drink. There's been so much wrestling on for the past week, I don't know what to do anymore.
You're WrestleMania wasted.
That's the hashtag WrestleMania wasted. Jonathan, before we even get talking about everything that happened this weekend, who's stopping by?
Well, I'll tell you who's stopping by. It's somebody who used to just haunt my nightmares at night. The Warlord. I'm not too proud to say that I was terrified by this gentleman as a child. One half of the powers of pain. And then he went on to be just the Warlord, and he's a huge guy. He's like very terrifying, but I can't wait to talk to him. Hopefully he doesn't, take anything out on us. And I'm excited to talk to this gentleman today. Wow,
definitely stay tuned for this one. The Warlord will be in the AWP studios very shortly. But Jonathan, briefly, let's get into this, man. My head still hurts from what was happening. What were your thoughts about WrestleMania this week, man?
Wow, WrestleMania week in general, I was very happy about. I was glad to see the Mick Foley Stone Cold podcast, and we got some news out of that. They're going to start a show, Holy Foley, as they said. Noel Foley is actually wanting to become a wrestler, so we'll see where this goes. But I think that the week went off really well. All the everything, whether it be the Hall of Fame, to NXT TakeOver, to WrestleMania, I was very, very happy about. I was a little apprehensive about the Hall of Fame class this year, but then actually watching the Hall of Fame event, it really changed my mind, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, man, same here. Everybody always talks like, oh, why is this guy going in before this guy, and yada, 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 but regardless, man, the Hall of Fame, it's fun to hear from all these guys and girls, actually, too. Just to get to hear their speeches, fun little anecdotal stories of them getting inducted and all that stuff. It's a fun time, It's the night before WrestleMania. Granted, you can't put all the A-listers in at once. You know what I'm saying? You gotta mix it up a little bit, and it's still fun, man. It's still fun to listen to each and every year. Each and every year this happens. Everybody gets upset that, somebody's going in before somebody else, but at the end of the day, it's still a great show for the weekend. So I had fun. I loved listening to him. Vader, though, I don't think he knows that he's not going into the Hall of Fame. I think he was a little bit confused. Maybe he thought it was for him, but a little bit, they carried on a little bit. But it was still fun hearing from him.
Yeah, and you know what? It was a good mix. There were some classic stories, like with the Freebirds, and there were some great, just great. I would have loved to have been around during that time and actually been in Texas whenever the Freebirds and Von Erichs were fighting. But just to hear some of the stories that Terry Gordy, was a part of was great. But it was awesome to see Jesse from Jesse and Festus. Ray Gordy Jr. There at the Hall of Fame ceremony. Slam Master Jay was back, and I hear he's a police officer now. But it would have been great to if he could come back and wrestle. I always liked the Jesse and Festus. I thought it was one of the best things going. But I was sad whenever he left. But it was good to see him on Hall of Fame Day.
Yeah, and I was laughing so much because it was great hearing the stories from Michael P.S. Hayes. I like to call him Doc Hendricks still, but he started singing the song at the end of the Hall of Fame, and I was like, all right. And then it was just like, wow, he's gonna really sing it till the very end. I thought he'd do a few seconds of it, jump up and down, and that was it. But he did the whole song. He went for the whole thing.
Yeah, at that point during the song, he looked around, he read the room, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna do the other half of this song. I think that this is great. And they're digging it." So,
I know that was hilarious. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a great man. Like I said, I gotta get some aspirin or something. I'm still just like I'm in wrestling days right now. But before we even talk about a lot of stuff that happened this weekend, Jonathan, I know it's really early, but do you have any predictions of maybe one match you would love to see happen at next year's Mania?
Just judging by what happened this year at Mania. And what could have happened this year had there not been a lot of injuries, I really believe that Undertaker may retire next year. I know everybody says that every year, but the match that I see happening is John Cena versus The Undertaker. And, really that would kind of cement his legacy. Either, whatever. Both of their legacies, to be completely honest. So, that's the only match that I can really come up with that has any real shot of happening. I can sit here and toy around with the idea of a triple threat match with the Shield for the WWE Championship, which would be awesome. But I think that if that happens, we'll get that sooner rather than later.
Definitely. I think the only thing I want to throw out there is just to change it up a bit. I mean, last year at WrestleMania 31, we had a ladder match for the IC belt. Great match. But this year, we had a ladder match for the IC belt. A great match, but I felt like change it up a little bit. I think because if we have one constant, it should be that Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and that's fine with me. But I don't know, I just like to see different matches. And don't get me wrong, I loved when Money in the Bank was a match at WrestleMania. But, I don't know. I feel like I don't want I don't want a lot of the similar matches happening every year. But regardless, too, next year, please, no DDP or no Tatanka in the Battle Royal. That's the only thing I didn't get. I understood Shaq, but I was kind of confused because it was like, is this a gimmick Battle Royal now, or is it meant for everybody who really wasn't on Mania? And I don't know. It was a little confusing, but overall, it's WrestleMania. It's a great time, and I still, whatever happens next year, I just hope it's a little bit different. But at the end of the day, Jonathan, I guess that's what we're going to be talking about soon. But let's hear it from everybody out there. The AWP hotline is open. Let us know what your thoughts were from WrestleMania weekend, and if you didn't get a chance to call, please call 802-297-7672. That's 802 AWP 7672, and leave us a promo. Tell us what you love, tell us what you hate, tell us about anything that's on your mind in the world of pro wrestling.
What I love is some good real wrestling, some Styles, some Jericho, that match, probably the height of the card. Other than the McMahon, oh my God spot. That's probably the biggest, oh my God. Could be since Hogan slammed Andre, in my opinion. In this generation, most definitely the biggest, oh my God moment in WrestleMania history since 3, when Andre got slammed for sure.
Well, to continue this WrestleMania hangover, WrestleMania wasted hashtag, we are going to talk a little bit about NXT TakeOver. Just our thoughts on the whole show. To be completely honest, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I don't want to take anything away from WrestleMania or the people who were on it or anything like that. And I am by no means a armchair booker. as I would call myself. But I think that NXT TakeOver as a whole was damn near perfect. I don't think that there was too much more that could have happened to have made that event any better. I'm just going to get right into it. So with Nakamura debuting, going against Sami Zayn, it was one of the best matches wrestling that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know a lot of people are saying that, but I'm currently looking at my collection of DVDs and Blu-ray and everything else, and I've watched a lot of wrestling in my time. So I really sincerely believe that this match, if I could give it 1,000 stars, I would. Nakamura absolutely impressed, and I think is the future of not only NXT, but could be the future of the WWE at some point. What were your thoughts on this match?
I'll tell you what, I knew Nakamura. I've seen some of his work in Ring of Honor. I saw some of his matches over New Japan, but I never really, hardcore watched him. I didn't want to Google him. I didn't want to go on YouTube and watch every one of his matches. I kind of wanted to take this as like a fresh point of view from him. You know what I mean? So like I knew of him. I seen some of his stuff, but I didn't want to go crazy of like watching every match of this guy. The entrance alone, man, the entrance makes a person these days. He has one of the best entrances. Just I don't know, his character, just his mannerisms, just everything he does from the moment he walks out to the moment he gets in the ring is just, it's amazing. It just gets me sucked in more to watch what else this guy is going to do in the match. And who better to fight than Sami Zayn? Granted, Sami's now on the main roster, but one hell of a match. I mean, this should have been at WrestleMania to have this kind of a match, but it was different. It was fast paced, but he had a different style, strong style, right? But I enjoyed every minute of it. I love being able to watch a match and I can get lost into it and not like nitpick it, being like, why did he do that, or what are they doing? Like I watched it and enjoyed it, and I think that's the best thing you can take away from this match, that it was an enjoyable match and an enjoyable debut. Absolutely.
I thought one of the best things and most telling things were some of the fan chants during this match, and one was "Fight Forever." And I really believe that is not only one of the best fan chants ever, but how most of us felt. I can't imagine too many people didn't enjoy this match. And, it was a perfect mix of athleticism and storytelling, because, Sami Zayn's like he was like the guy in NXT, and, he's protecting his yard or whatever you want to say from this new guy coming in. And they, hopefully Shinsuke is here to stay, if you will. And I can't wait to see what he does in NXT, really.
But Jonathan, did you see the smile from Sami Zayn before he walked out? Because he was marking out a little bit for himself that he's about to fight Nakamura on this pay-per-view. It was kind of funny. I was like, I just loved seeing him break a little bit of character right there. He was happy that this match was happening, so it just made it more enjoyable to watch, I think. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was really pumped about it. And, I think that I've heard that Sammy's like one of the nicest people around. And if that's the case, I'm just so happy that he's getting all this success. And, it's going to be great to see what they both do in the coming years.
That's right. Now, Jonathan, one of the best matches of the night, too, was a tag team match with the Revival coming in as the champs, taking on American Alpha. What can you tell me about this? Because I think, the fans are really behind American Alpha right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't bump them up anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, American Alpha is one of those teams that just seriously got thrown together, and who would have known that they would have went on to enjoy this much success. Jason Jordan was kind of, I don't want to say he was floundering, but literally, they didn't know what to do with him, and I almost thought that he would get future endeavored, if you will. But they put him with Gable, and, now they have Magic. And the Revival are no slouches either. They're two great wrestlers, throwbacks, if you will. And I'm very excited for the possibility of these guys wrestling again down the road. And American Alpha are your new champions. And I look forward to a reforming almost of the NXT tag team scene because, as we will talk about soon, some of the NXT teams are now main roster teams. So,
that's right, yeah. Now, oh, sorry, go ahead. You can do it.
No, that's right. Well, something that I'm going to come back to a bunch, probably whenever we're talking about this, are the women. And whether it be NXT TakeOver or whether it be WrestleMania, who would have thunk in 2016 that I would be talking about the great shape that women's wrestling is in currently. But Bayley came in as champion, taking on Asuka. They did not disappoint, Steve.
No, they did not at all, and I was kind of surprised. I mean, at one point, I was like, maybe this might be the time that she's going to lose, and at the same time, I was like, well, maybe not. And hey, it was a great match. I don't think maybe the best Bayley could have done, or that she has done in the past, especially with her Iron Woman match and all that stuff. But I think it was still a great match. It was still, I think Asuka is definitely going to be a great champion to follow Bayley's footsteps. And, I honestly thought with her losing, she would have been moved up last week on Raw or even Mania at one point. But, the fans are really behind her. And, I think it's a good transition. I think, Asuka is going to be a great champion. And Bayley, like I said, or I think we talked about it once upon a time, but, if you asked me about, a year ago or so about Bayley being the women's champion down there in NXT, I would have been like, maybe for a little bit. I thought she'd been like a little transitional champion, but she's definitely, come into her own, and definitely, showed the world what she can do. And, it is what it is. And it was one hell of a match.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, these women are going to end up eventually on the main roster, but they are inspiring just, young girl after young girl, woman after woman to get into this business. And, if one thing came out of this weekend, it's just how passionate these women are about wrestling. And it's very encouraging to see. And I hope that kind of trickles down through all of wrestling, and that you see some of these people come in that really love wrestling and love what they're doing. I think that there are people in the wrestling business. I'll get off my soapbox in a minute, but I think there are some people in the wrestling business that do it because the pay's pretty good and they get to travel the world and all that. But I think a lot of those people are slowly but surely getting replaced by people that actually love wrestling and want to be there. And we saw that for sure in this match.
Definitely. And Jonathan, really quick too, the main event was Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe. Right off the top of this match, Jonathan, Samoa Joe, cracked his face, I want to say. He was bleeding from his forehead right up into the first seconds of this match. And granted, hey, it's wrestling and things happen like this. I'm glad they didn't stop it. I'm glad he was okay, but him bleeding and all the medical attention made this match even, a must-see. I can't even think English anymore just speaking about it, but a must-see match of just what was going on with it, because is he going to be bleeding too much? Are they going to have to stop it? What's going to happen? It just made it more intriguing, more real, more anything than any other match happening. And granted, I know they stray away from blood on pro wrestling these days, but it's going to happen. Things like this happen, and it just made the match more intriguing to watch. Of what could happen if he's bleeding like this? Can he pass out? Will they stop the match? All this it just led up to a bigger match, I think, than what it was originally.
Yeah, and if you guys follow us on Twitter, you would see that we were live tweeting a lot of these shows, and I had mentioned that I'm not a huge fan of gratuitous blood. You see it a lot in the old ECW days or whatever, and I know they had the reasons for it, and it created the Attitude Era, and wrestling has never been the same since. But there was something about that blood that really made that feud even more than it was. It made it more intense. It culminated, so much differently than it would have, I think, if Joe hadn't been busted open. But I can't wait to see them fight again and again and again. And I think that, down the line, Joe will be your NXT champion. And I'm just looking forward to it. I think that TakeOver, like I said, was as near perfect of an event as it could be.
Definitely. And I'm if Finn Balor's listening out there, and I know he probably is because he was on episode 100, but I would love to see some new, updated body paint for this man. That was his thing back then before he joined the WWE, so I want to see a change in what he does just because, give us something different a little bit. But regardless, Jonathan, it was one hell of a start to WrestleMania weekend.
All right, well, if you've been listening for the past couple weeks, you know that we have Jason Sensation. He's been joining us for his segment called Jason Regeneration. Now, we all know Jason as a very talented and funny guy, but in the world of celebrity, even in the world of sports entertainment, you never really know what's going on behind the curtain. So Jason asked for this time, this week and next week, to kind of come on and maybe clear the air, mend some fences, and try to maybe apologize to some of the people that he hurt along the way. This is a more serious side of Jason Sensation, but it's still very important. And there's some great messages out there that Jason's going to talk about, and we hope you enjoy this just as much as the first 2 weeks.
Hey, this is Jason Sensation with Jason Regeneration. And I'm here on another wrestling podcast this week to talk more on the serious side about myself. And if I end up going on too long, then maybe we can split this up into a two-parter. But we'll see how it goes. I'm just going to try to get this off my chest and try to get to the point. And for the last, close to a decade now, I have, everybody who's in the wrestling business may remember me for that 15 minutes of fame of doing Owen Hart impression with D-Generation X, and my stint with WWE, getting to do impersonations, and the short time I traveled around with them. I was actually working a 3-year contract, and it wasn't just for the short time that most people had seen me on WWE, and I actually worked for them for 3 years. And to get down to I'm just going to try to go back and explain where I came from, how I got there, and what's happened to me after. Because I've been carrying around this pretty heavy bag of resentment and pain and frustration and broken dreams for a long time, and I really want to set the bag down. I want to get it off my shoulders, and I want to finally move on from that. I think it's important to try to maybe explain myself and how I got here, and maybe just explaining what's in the bag for one last time in a positive state of mind, instead of just letting it out with such negativity as I've done in the past. Maybe that might be good for me. And I appreciate Steve and Jonathan from another wrestling podcast giving me the opportunity to do so. So I'm grateful. As a kid, I grew up loving the business, and I didn't have the greatest childhood, but I hid in the fantasy of wrestling, and I loved wrestling so much that it kept me basically occupied in my mind, living in a fantasy world, in a dream world. And as I grew and as I went to school and started to have to interact with society and interact with different people, I used wrestling as a persona. I used wrestling, being a wrestling fan, as my persona, and it began to help me interact with people. And impressions was my gift, and I learned impressions of all of my heroes, and they were wrestlers. So, it began with the Macho Man, and it went on from there, and slowly but surely I found that I could impersonate more than wrestlers. And I dreamed of being the next Mean Gene. I dreamed of, being the stick guy in WWE in the future. And I thought that maybe that could be me, And I put all my eggs in one basket and kept that dream from the time I was a child. And I loved wrestling, and I stayed hidden in this fantasy world. And, I used it to not have to deal with my reality so much that I could hide in wrestling. And, as I got popular in high school, I learned more impressions, and it became such a thing for me to impersonate wrestlers and entertain people, and people just loved it. And it became my persona, the wrestling guy. That's the wrestling guy. That's Macho Man. That's the Macho Man. That's the Sacred Heartbreak Kid. That's the high school I went to. I learned these impressions, and I went on dreaming that maybe I could use these impressions to get into WWE. And the dream came true. And I've shared so many stories over the years of how I got there. But once I was there, and once I had been on TV, and I'd realized my dream to the point of at least the door's open and I've walked through the door, it's a very cutthroat business, and it became very hard for me to keep my job and to stay afloat with all of these superstars and to continue on the pace I was going. And one thing after another, not all things work out as we imagine they're going to, and one thing after another led to me. It led to me, basically losing my dream and my dream getting cut short. And it was one thing after the other, and there were a lot of people that were nervous to lose their jobs as I see it now, and I think that I was a threat to some people behind the microphones, and some of the people that their only time on television was getting to promote the events and getting to do slam jams or getting to be in Connecticut selling the upcoming pay-per-views. And I was a threat to those people. Those were jobs that were promised to me. And when I first got there, I mean, the office loved me. Shane loved me. Vince Russo, huge fan of mine. Bruce Pritchard was calling me and trying to get me to move to Connecticut. And I was loved by so many in the office, and there were people that I thought loved me that maybe didn't love me so much. And I remember basically what cut my on-air capacity, my on-air popularity short, was getting caught crossing the border without a green card. And I didn't have a green card. I'd been begging for it for a couple of months now, and I'd been going over the border back and forth, and I finally got recognized by immigration, and they said, "Hey, we saw you on Raw. We're not letting you by without a green card." And I hadn't even signed a contract yet, and I was forced to stay in Canada, and now I had agents calling me, and agents wanting to get me to try to go to WCW, and telling me that I could be a millionaire now already. I could just become a millionaire if I, up and went to WCW. I'd already debuted. I'd already been impersonating Owen Hart on television with D-Generation X, and now I was stuck at home and I didn't have a contract. And some of these agents calling me were telling me, "Hey, you could sell yourself to Bischoff. Now he'll give you $1 million a year to make fun of the WWE stars." And there was kind of an uproar going on behind the scenes to keep a hold of me now. And Vince McMahon and Vince Russo and Triple H were calling me, and Triple H was offering me his agent at the time. I think his name was Barry Bloom. I think his name was, and Vince Russo called me on behalf of Vince McMahon, and literally on behalf of Vince McMahon begged me not to sign with Barry Bloom, not to sign with any agents, not to turn my back on WWE now and run off to WCW, and that Vince would sign me to a 3-year contract. Vince Russo told me, as per Vince McMahon, I would be signed to a 3-year contract, and they promised to stick to that contract no matter what, whether I was on TV or not, no matter what happened, they would keep that contract going, and I would get that 3 years. And they guaranteed that if I was loyal to them, that they would be loyal to me for the 3 years. And I laughed at it almost as if, guys, you don't have nothing to worry about. This has been my dream since I was a little kid to be in WWE. So I went with this dream, and I went with their offer and said, "You have nothing to worry about. Send the contract in the mail. I'll sign it with Carl DeMarco in WWE Canada, at the head office there, and you guys have nothing to worry about. You have my loyalty. You have my word. And I stuck to my word, and I got to give them credit. Vince McMahon stuck to his word. I was signed to a 3-year contract, and they fulfilled that contract. I was on TV with WWE for maybe 2 months. I was on the road with them only for Canadian tours. And, the last 6 months of the contract, I moved out to Memphis, and that's where I managed Brian Kendrick and Bryan Danielson and Lance Cade and Shooter Schultz, and was part of the Shawn Michaels students clique there. And that was the end of my contract. So I worked a 3-year contract for WWE. But a lot of bad things seem to have happened to me that I just want to take this bag off. And I got sick in 2006, and there's a real stigma around mental illness, and a lot of people who suffer from mental illness don't want to come forward and don't want to talk about it because there's such a stigma around it. And I remember when I first got sick, I was afraid to talk about it. And I would put out videos explaining that I was sick, but not wanting to explain my illness. And I mean, some trollers got really, really disgusting with me. Like, they would put on really disgusting things on the internet about, the different illnesses that I'm suffering from and what I'm dying from. And Jason's dying from this and dying from that. And I just saw it as a mistake to even begin to talk about it after. And I became embarrassed about it. And so I never talked about it. And I saw all this awful stuff put on the internet about me. So I didn't want to talk about it. But it's mental illnesses I was dealing with. And it was a number of them, not just depression, but bipolar disorder and mood swings and psychosis. And these are, major issues with mental illness that I've been suffering from for the better part of a decade now and diagnosed with. And on disability, I'm actually mentally disabled. So when I first began to get sick, I guess it was when everything was falling apart in my life. And, my wife at the time was leaving me, and she couldn't deal with me being so depressed from my mom dying and my brother being so sick, and my brother Johnny, who called himself Johnny Blood Clot because he's had the worst blood clot you could ever imagine. It's in the history books here in Canada for being one of the worst blood clots a human being's been diagnosed with. And he's a real, miracle that he's alive and his body was able to live through it and survived through it. And he still lives with this giant blood clot every day. And he turned it into a wrestling gimmick, or he turned it into a gimmick anyway. He's actually a musician, but he was just as much a wrestling fan as I was growing up, and he had just as many dreams as I did about being part of the business. And anyhow, I was trying to get to the point here, but you can see it's sort of a long story here, and that's why I'm afraid I might go past my time here this week. It might take a couple of episodes to explain this, but anyhow, so when I first went off the deep end, and I see it as having basically a mental breakdown. I had some issues going on with me, and professionally, I had some issues professionally where I was being bullied, and it was bringing back a lot of awful memories from my childhood and a lot of awful memories from working in WWE and some of the bad things that had happened to me there. And, I kind of went AWOL and just began to go nuts. I started doing podcasts for these guys in Toronto that, they just loved having me on and exploiting me, not knowing totally that I was mentally ill, but like, if you just listen to one of the podcasts of me going off the deep end, you would know that I was mentally ill. And these guys had fun with it. Like, they let me go off and just shoot as much as I wanted to, and it was maybe helping their show, but it wasn't really helping me for the long run. But that wasn't an issue at all for them. It was just like, go nuts, Jason, let it all off your chest, and they were encouraging it. And so that's what I did. I went nuts and I let it all off my chest in such a negative way. I screamed it. I wasn't medicated at the time, and a lot of my illnesses had not been diagnosed fully. So I was still at the beginning of a long road that I'm still on. And I really freaked. I really let a lot of stuff off my chest in negative ways, and I wish I could take back the way I just let it off my chest. And some of the things I said about the people that I felt had abused me and I felt had bullied me in WWE, I couldn't calm my anger down. I was basically suffering from bipolar disorder, and I would just flip out in the middle of doing some of these shows, and some of the stuff coming out of my mouth was really disgusting. It wasn't just on podcasts. I was going and I was calling some of them and leaving messages for them, on the Connecticut office numbers. I mean, I'd seen some of them joking about it on Raw, and I could see that the messages had got through, and it was almost a joke. But the real joke it wasn't a joke that I was suffering from an illness, and I can't go back and take back some of those answering machine messages I left, and I can't go back and take off some of those shoot interviews that are still, you can find them on Google, and you can find people exploiting them, and people trolling them, and people taking things out of context and making them worse on Google. And I feel like that's probably why I'm blackballed from WWE, and I've never got another opportunity to go back. I've never been called to go back when so many fans thought that what I was doing was a great part of the show and a great addition to the show, and I was a character and the talent of something new that hadn't really been done before, someone who just straightly does impressions. And, I have that claim to fame, and there were some impersonators before me and some impersonators after me in wrestling, but no one has that claim to be the impersonator of all the wrestlers. And, I've got that claim to fame, but there's this dark cloud over it, and I just want to release this dark cloud, and I want to, get to the bottom of getting it off my shoulders. And, I wrote a book. I wrote a book when I was suffering, at the beginning of suffering, but the book is filled with so much hate and anger and heartache and frustration and resentment that I never wanted to let it out there, because I'd seen that now I would be remembered on the internet as this angry person who's just got nothing but, negativity coming out of them. And, I didn't want to be remembered that way. And so I figured I'd already done the damage in being remembered that way. So anyhow, maybe rewriting this book and explaining mental illness and trying to bring awareness to that might be a good idea for me. And, it would help me get over the stigma that I feel from having mental illnesses, and just the embarrassment that goes along with being mentally ill. And it's something that a lot of people fight alone, and a lot of people don't even come forward and don't even ask for help and don't even look for a way out of it, and they have to deal with these things, and sometimes they don't know how to deal with these things, and it can end off in suicide. If I could get that message out there, that would be the most important thing for me, is that by reaching out to the doctors and by looking for help and by admitting that I wasn't well and admitting that things were going on in my mind that I couldn't control and I didn't know how to control or deal with, that, I believe, saved my life, along with health care and these doctors that went out of their way to try to help me and try to save me and do everything they could in their power to help me heal and diagnose these problems and help try to medicate them. And so if I could get that message out there, that reaching out and admitting you have a problem is it's the most important thing, to not stay alone with these issues if you're suffering from mental illnesses, or if you have things going on in your mind, or if you're so depressed that you don't know how to deal with each day, and some days you don't think you can even get out of bed, let alone face life. it's seeking help for it, talking about it, telling people, and if it's not people in your life that won't understand, then telling a doctor about it and reaching out and trying to find help. That's the most important thing, that you have to get help, because you don't want to live alone with these things and let it fester and let it turn into something, because we all know stories of so many different wrestlers and so many different actors and so many people around the world that have committed suicide and died because of these illnesses. And the first step is just admitting that you might have a problem and to seek help, because there is help out there, and the stigma is going away, and more people are talking about it. And if I could just try to get that word out to people, anyone suffering alone with these illnesses, to reach out, because there are hands that will help you. There are hands to grab a hold of, to help try to pull you out of this rubble. And that's what I've been trying to do for the better part of a decade now. And that's why I want to take this bag off my shoulders, and I want to find some peace and leave the negative behind. And
once again, we want to thank Jason Sensation for coming on. It's not the easiest subject to talk about. Mental illness is a real problem in the entire world, and a lot of people, as you mentioned, are suffering for it. We here at Another Wrestling Podcast encourage all of you to talk to people. Let's stop this stigma of mental illness. Let's get out there and let's help each other. That's what this is all about. So we want to thank you so much for listening to Jason Regeneration, and we look forward to hearing from him again next week.
Promo of the week.
The former manager of the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions Demolition, Mr. Fuji, along with the Barbarian and the Warlord, the Powers of Pain.
Let me tell you, Demolition, I did not know you were so stupid. You fall into Master Fuji's trick into signing a contract 3 against 2 for the World Tag Team Champion. Remember, in WrestleMania number 4, I, Master Fuji, got you the belts. But let me tell you, after you got the belt, you had no discipline to Master Fuji. You had no one to listen to Master Fuji. So I got the Powers of Pain, bigger and stronger than you. And also, they listen to the Master Fuji. And I tell you, it's destined that we will win the World Tag Team belt. And once again, Master Fuji will have belt around waves.
That's right. WrestleMania is going to be the challenge of the century. X, I have no respect for you. You are the champion. You are big and bad, so we are the same. But don't forget, we are stronger. And when the master say, cripple him, I will do it to satisfy him. Very big man. Smash! Master Fuji has had us doing 5,000 push-ups a day, 1,000 sit-ups a day, and running 10 miles with Master Fuji on our back. And in our mind, we are going to win the belts for Master Fuji.
The weekend wouldn't be complete without the actual WrestleMania. That makes WrestleMania weekend, doesn't it? Jonathan, if there was a lot of wrestling going on. Like, I think if you clocked it from sitting down at 5 o'clock to when the pre-show started to when it ended around like 11:30, 11:45 or whatever, it was like 7 hours of wrestling. Is that a lot of wrestling, Jonathan, for WrestleMania? Granted, any fan's going to be like, nope, but I don't know. That was a lot of time for all this. What did you think about that as a whole?
I thought that when I sat down, I was like, man, I can't wait. WrestleMania. And then I was like, wow, it's been going on for a long time, but it's WrestleMania. And then I was like, dude, I got to go to bed soon, but it's WrestleMania. So I stayed up as long as the event was, and then that was it. There was no room. I mean, I kept thinking, okay, it's 11. It's 11:15, and it kept going. I don't know, man. I think that maybe instead of having all those matches, they don't want people to feel left out, and they've got this network, and they can, they can stretch the time and all that stuff now because it's not really a pay-per-view anymore. But I think that maybe, and once again, I am not a booker. I'm not a promoter. I've never had to do this in my life. I can just sit here behind this computer and I can say these things. But I really think that this year, with all the injuries and all that stuff, it kind of hurt them. It changed all the plans. WrestleMania didn't have as big of a build for some of these matches. And I think that if that's the case, then just don't put them on the card. You know what I mean? Like, like I said, it's hypocritical for me to say that I don't want the 10 Divas match, but it really didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like, you've got Bayley and Asuka having an amazing match. You've got Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte having probably the match at Mania. And then you've got those 10, like, no one, I'm glad that they let Brie go out kind of on a high note, but in all actuality, like, that match, even the Dudleys and the Usos really didn't hold up. There was really nothing going on with that one. So yeah, it was weird. I loved WrestleMania. I enjoyed it. There were some amazing things that happened, but there's also some things that could have maybe happened on the Raw after Mania, and I would have been fine with that too.
Oh yeah, definitely. But let's start about some of these Mania matches, Jonathan. Like we were saying, now that we're on the regular show, we're past the pre-show a little bit. Zack Ryder won the IC championship. I think I even predicted this on our WrestleMania special, to where, I was like, I want Kevin Owens maybe to walk out as champion, but at the same time, I want to see somebody different win it, and I think that person different winning it would have been Zack Ryder. And lo and behold, Zack Ryder won it. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I popped as much as I did for any other match than the IC match when Zack Ryder won it. Only for the fact that it was different. You didn't see it coming. At first, you saw The Miz about to win it, and I was like, The Miz. Like, I had nothing behind it. But seeing Zack Ryder get his WrestleMania moment, I think, made that match for me right there. And I thought that was one of my favorite matches of the night.
Yeah, the IC match was great. Ladder match at Mania, you can't really go wrong. Knowing what we know now, I'm kind of sad that it was Ryder that won it, because just to lose it the next night is not, the best thing. But he is now in his books. He won a match at WrestleMania, the Intercontinental title. His hero, he was talking about holding Razor Ramon's title, and now he took a picture with Scott Hall holding his title. So all worked out well for Zack Ryder. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. It was one of my favorites of the show. But my favorite match, lo and behold, once again, here we are talking about women's wrestling, was the Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte match at Mania. I loved this match.
Jonathan, I loved a lot of these matches, but at the same time, I didn't love the outcomes of them. Great match. I think Charlotte should have went in there as Divas Champion and should have been the last Divas Champion, and then I would have really loved to see Sasha or Becky win the new Women's Championship. And like I said, it's not taken away from the match that they put on. Like, I love the match. But a lot of these matches, man, I was just upset about the outcomes of it, pretty much. Like, I didn't really, like, it was a great match, but at the end of it, I was like, I don't really care about seeing Charlotte win it. I was like, I would have been happier to see somebody else win it, but, you can't win them all. But I don't know. Did you have the feeling about the winner too?
I was fine with Charlotte winning. I thought that what it did was make everybody take notice once again of women's wrestling. Charlotte did great. Becky did great. Sasha did great. Either of those two, other than Charlotte, are going to walk away with the new women's title at some point. And that's just amazing that they came out and did that. And the women, Charlotte got the same fireworks as Roman. I think this is great. Like, it's this time in this world for people to be equal. And, this was a highlight of Mania, just to see this. So I was very happy with it. I will say, Steve, the one match that really confused me more than anything would be the AJ Styles versus Jericho match. Before I get into what I have to say, what do you think about this match?
There's another thing, Jonathan, another thing too, to where I don't hate Jericho, but I don't really get why they're giving him a lot of these wins at this stage of his career. Jericho's done it all. You know what I mean? I'm not going to even list his accomplishments. He's done it all. His name, it is what it is. He did not need this win at Mania. Granted, I don't know if this is backstage politics to where Vince isn't going to let one of these outsider guys from TNA or New Japan beat one of his guys like last year where Sting lost against Triple H, and I don't know. That could just be in my head, but I thought it was one of those things to where they didn't let him win because of where he came from, and it was kind of so soon because he literally just debuted at the Royal Rumble, and now he's getting a Mania match, and for him just to get a win right away. But I don't know. It just didn't make sense for Jericho to win, and that was another match. I was watching that. It was a okay match. I still think Jericho can't keep up with AJ Styles, and that all the DDP yoga he's doing is still not putting him on par with AJ Styles, and AJ I think has to slow down for him. So I kind of I hope the next feud, which we can get into later, AJ is paired with somebody who can actually keep up with him and go with his speed. But at the end of the day, I think AJ deserved that win, and it didn't happen.
Well, once again, we're going to agree on this one. I don't know, once again, like you said, if it was the fact that this was the face of TNA coming in or whatever, but we have to look back 2 years. We look at WrestleMania 29 when Chris Jericho allowed Fandango to beat him at Mania. So,
now that you bring that up, man, I'm just thinking in my head. So Fandango could beat Jericho, but AJ Styles cannot beat. All right, never mind. Sorry.
Exactly. And and we'll get into Raw after Mania here shortly. So we know that everything ended up turning out all right for AJ, but still, I think a win for him at Mania is awesome. AJ's a little bit older than some of these competitors. This could have been his only singles match at WrestleMania. Next year it could be a tag match or whatever. So to not let him end up having that win at Mania was a little peculiar to me, but it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. But what do you got for us? What's next, Steve?
No, yeah, definitely. I think moving on to the next big installment of WrestleMania that happened was the Hell in a Cell match. Jonathan, did it live up to the expectations that it should have? I mean, I think going into this, we all knew that Shane McMahon was going to do something crazy. But even at his age, I was like, well, maybe not that crazy, but yeah, he's still crazy. What did you think of how insane Shane McMahon was that night, jumping off that Hell in a Cell?
So I felt like, okay, I am probably one of the biggest Shane McMahon fans out there in the world. I thought that this match was going to just be a 5-star match, and I don't know why, but I still am proud of what they both accomplished, but it felt like to me that entire match was built around him jumping off the cage.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like it was all just going to that high spot, and that's it. So with that being said, it was a match. It happened. I'm proud of Shane to be able to go out there with his kids and show them that. And, he even got to come out on Raw. I hope it's not the last we see of Shane McMahon. But this match maybe came a little too late in both of their careers.
Why would you want to show your kids this, Jonathan? I figured it was a guaranteed win when he was walking out with his sons. But then it was like one of those things you're going to let your kids witness you jump off this Hell in a Cell. And, anything could go wrong in this. You know what I mean? He could have died in this. And, man... It was crazy.
The only thing I can say is good luck to Shane and his wife ever telling his kids that they can't do something. Like, hey, kids, why don't you stop jumping on the bed or you'll get hurt? Oh, kind of like how you jumped off a 20-foot cage, Dad. Like, there's no way that they can ever tell them not to do something that's semi-dangerous because he literally jumped off a 2-story building.
Insane. And little things too, like you're saying, it definitely built it around of him just jumping off this Hell in a Cell, and even to where he had to wire cut the cage to get open, to where I think that should have kind of already been rigged, and somebody should have just went through that cage through that door without him actually having to cut it open. But little things like that I guess you could nitpick about. But yeah, it is what it is. A lot of people thought we were going to see a lot of surprises or interferences in this match, but it didn't happen. And, hey, I'll tell you what, for both of these guys doing what they did, thumbs up, for even attempting this. And I'm glad nobody got hurt. But Jonathan, too, I was hearing a little bit of a rumble going around that, this could have been Taker's last match, from what he was telling some people. Do you think Taker goes out on that?
I don't think he goes out on that. I think that he's going to have to see how he feels, and I think it's time for WWE to start thinking about what they're going to replace Undertaker with at Mania. It's been a staple for so many years, and now, he's starting to wind down. I don't think he's going to go out like this. I think he'll have one more big match, and then it'll be like, when Shawn retired or Ric Flair retired. So I think it'll be one big thing. But yeah, I definitely don't think this is his last match.
Jonathan, you said it right there. They need a new staple at WrestleMania, and I honestly thought it should have been, or should still be, Brock Lesnar, the man who put the 1 in 21-1. They built him up. He beat the streak. I think, he definitely coming out of the news of that he signed a multi-year deal again with him, maybe a 3-year deal or whatnot. I'm not saying Brock needs to go 21 and whatever, but if you beat the Phenom, I think you should become the new Phenom and be that unbeatable guy. And granted, he did have a match at WrestleMania. It definitely was a match that definitely didn't really raise the bar or lower the bar. I don't know what it did, but it definitely didn't do anything for either of the guys. I'm just happy Brock Lesnar walked away with the victory from this match against Dean Ambrose. And by the way, I'm getting a little mad about this too, because I think I was counting them. I think I was up to 11 suplexes, and Dean Ambrose miraculously can still get up after that and walk and do all this stuff. The man needs to sell. I'm sorry. The man needs to make it look like he just went through 11 suplexes. John Cena did it. The Undertaker did it. But no, Dean Ambrose went through 11, and he was pretty much up and, running around doing the same stuff that he does. And granted, I know the kind of character that he's building or he's built, but still, come on. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say is come on.
Well, I think that what happened is out of this match, you've got Dean Ambrose, who I don't know if WWE knows what they're going to do with him now for a while. You know what I mean? Like this match happened, and they,
yep.
What's going to happen next? But he took punishment from Brock. Brock beat the Undertaker. Brock beat Cena. Brock beat all these people, and Dean stood up to him, got all those suplexes, got F5 several times, got beat up. He took a licking, and he keeps on ticking, as they say. So I'm not so upset with it. I think that it's all for the greater good of Dean to, eventually be taken more seriously as a competitor and be seen as somebody who can, go. Dean reminds me a lot of, people like Daniel Bryan or CM Punk or anybody that, he's not your stereotypical wrestler. He's not what everybody thinks of, but I definitely think he's got the ability to be a champion someday. But they need to do things like this to make people believe that he can be that champion.
Definitely. And Jonathan, coming to a close at WrestleMania, I know there's a lot of in-betweens and this and that, with The Rock with a flamethrower that probably wasn't really needed, the return of John Cena and whatnot, but I think if we get to the main event, do you think this was a WrestleMania caliber main event to you, or I don't know, how did you feel about Roman Reigns walking away with the victory?
I think that 90% of the people believe that was what was going to happen. The match itself was fairly solid. I liked it. I'm a fan of Triple H. I also don't hate Roman Reigns. A lot of people just don't like him. The thing that I have to say about this is that Roman Reigns, yes, his father was a wrestler. Yes, he's related to The Rock. But wrestling wasn't his first love. He played football. He came in with the Shield, and both of those guys had been on the independents for a very long time. I think that Roman Reigns, people are already automatically assume that he's been wrestling for 20 years, and that's why they think he should be better. But he's still very young in his career, and I think that Roman's got a lot of stuff to give to the wrestling world. So I think that there's a lot of good things to come from Roman. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think that we saw, maybe it's just because it was the Raw after Mania, which we're going to talk about very shortly, but I saw this kind of cocky, arrogant side of Roman that I think that maybe more of needs to come out to really get this going.
Yeah, definitely. I don't hate Roman Reigns either. I think what I hate is that they're trying to make him something that he's really not. We saw it, I think, the months leading into when he actually won the championship in December, to where, he was just a beast, a wild guy. Like, he was doing things on his own, beating up people and whatnot, and it was great. But when you give him a mic and he's trying to be funny, and it's just like, no, this isn't him. What are you doing? And granted, we said people to where, he quote unquote shoved them down our throats to where, he had to win the Superstar of the Year, had to win the Royal Rumble, had to do this and that, and to where it's like, okay, we get it. He's your next, boy, he's your next guy or whatnot. So I think people just didn't like that. That it was like, it wasn't, authentic. It wasn't like a Daniel Bryan where the fans were cheering him, they got behind him and made him put him in that spot that he was at WrestleMania 30. But with Roman Reigns, a great look, great guy. Maybe he's just not being himself, and I think once he starts being a little bit more of himself, I think we might see something else happen within that. But I don't know. I don't know if that was a great match to close WrestleMania with. And granted, Triple H is great, Roman Reigns was great. I don't know. It didn't feel like WrestleMania to me. I feel like we already seen too much of these guys as it is. Not necessarily against each other, but I don't know. It didn't really. I feel like we already saw this already. And it is what it is, though. But I guess you can't win them all. And who knows what happens with their story as it goes. But if we can get right into what you're saying, the Raw that everybody wants to talk about is the Raw after Mania. Jonathan, what happened? I mean, it was a great Raw. I enjoyed it. What do you think?
Okay, so I loved it. There's two things that really bothered me about it, and I'm nitpicking here. But the two things that really bothered me is that this whole match with Undertaker and Shane was, if he lost, then he's dead to Vince and all that stuff, and that he'll never be able to, be on Raw again and blah, blah, blah. And not only was he on Raw, but Vince said, hey, how about you just take care of Raw one night? We'll see how terrible you do. Like, whatever. So that bothered me. But then also they say Shane's in charge, and we only saw him actually, making one match, really, and that's when he went up to Roman and told them that there'd be those four guys in the number one contenders match. So, I like cohesiveness in the story. If you tell me, hey, you're going to be in charge, then I want to see him, making matches and talking to people or whatever. That didn't happen. And don't tell me you didn't have enough time, because you got 3 hours. So that bothered me. But other than that, I was very excited about wrestling, and I was very excited about that Raw.
Yeah, it was definitely a head scratcher, Jonathan, to where it's like, the crowd popped for it, and it was, once again, I figured we'd see Shane backstage saying, we saw him talking to Apollo Crews, who made his debut, but I figured you'd say, we get something out of him being like, you know what, I'm gonna make this Raw better. I'm gonna have this guy debut next. Little things like that to make it actually look like he was booking Raw or doing something with it. But yeah, it was just like, you're in charge, and, well, we're not going to really see you for the rest of the night. So it's little things like that they need to figure out, and I don't know, figure out the little details about doing that. And that's what was, it throws everybody off. But all in all, it was still a good Raw. We got a lot of NXT debuts, Jonathan. They pretty much gutted NXT somewhat. But that was a lot more debuts than I thought we would have gotten. What did you think?
Yeah, before Raw, we saw Baron Corbin debut at WrestleMania during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And so it was cool to see him on Raw. I like his match against Ziggler. I thought it was really good. We also got to see Apollo Crews debut against Tyler Breeze, another NXT guy. So, this is great, because that's what you want. You want these characters to be able to come out of NXT, go straight to the main roster, and be able to be accepted or booed, whatever they're supposed to be. And so within the one of the night that we got to see was the debut of Enzo and Cass. And I know that we both were looking forward to that a lot. So what were your thoughts about these call-ups?
Oh, man. Apollo Crews I was surprised with, because I honestly thought they were going to make him NXT champion and hang out down in NXT for a little bit just to work on that. But, he has a great following. I think he'll definitely add to the Raw roster. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't hate the guy. I'm a fan. I can't wait to see what they do with him. But I'll tell you what, man. I was kind of worried a little bit about Enzo and Cass. Not so much of, not how they're going to handle them or whatnot, but just kind of how they would transition from there to Raw. And I'll tell you what, I know that it was the Raw After Mania crowd, or it was the Mania crowd still, but man, Enzo is golden on the mic. Anything he says is just funny. It's hilarious. And I think they complement each other well. And I really hope they're definitely a breath of fresh air back into the tag team division, because I don't know. I don't mind New Day, but I think they've run their course with how funny they could be, and it's like, it's, after a while, it's the same shtick after all in all. But I think Enzo and Cass could give them a run for money, and the promos back and forth with both of these teams I think would be awesome, and I'd love to see them become the tag team champions. But working with the Dudleys right now, I think will be a great stepping stone for them, and definitely, hopefully, the Dudleys, will put them on the map. So I think that was really great.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about those guys. And, once again, I think everybody was worried about Cass just because, Enzo's so over the top, but they mesh very well together. And I think either together or apart that they're going to end up being great no matter what. So I'm very happy with this pairing. But we saw a fatal four-way match at the close of Raw. We got to see, it was supposed to be Jericho, Sammy, AJ, and Kevin, but Kevin Owens put a stop to that. He put Sammy through a table backstage. So there was one spot open. Everybody was wondering who's it going to be. Any and every name was thrown out there. Hulk Hogan, Kurt Angle, you name it. The music went off. It was a returning Cesaro, which made a lot of people very happy. What were your thoughts on this match, and who were you hoping would be the number one contender?
At first, I honestly thought it was going to be Samoa Joe. I figured with his loss to Finn, I think he's been in NXT for over a year now, and I figure, does he really need to stay in NXT anymore? He did his job. He put people over. I honestly thought it was going to be Samoa Joe. It wasn't. It was Cesaro, and hey, I love Cesaro, and I'll tell you what, out of this whole thing, those four guys, if that's what the main event picture is going to look like a little bit, to where, okay, minus Jericho, but, AJ, Kevin Owens, and Cesaro, I'm happy. You got me happy right there. Just for these guys to at least be in the main event, maybe chasing that WWE Championship down the line, that's awesome. I really hope they use Cesaro better this time around. He doesn't need to reach for those brass rings because the fans love him. So I really hope, really hope they use him a lot better than they have in the past. So it was definitely great to see him back, though. And AJ is number one contender, Jonathan. He won the match. What is going to happen? I know a lot of talk is happening about maybe a Bullet Club versus the Shield reunion kind of a thing. I don't know what's going to happen. That's just, who knows what I just said. But, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I almost think this is going to be the beginning of the Roman heel turn, because you're telling me you're going to put AJ Styles up against Roman Reigns? There's no way anybody's going to be cheering for Roman Reigns. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this and what happens. What about you? What are your thoughts about this whole AJ becoming the number one contender? I mean, do you think, what is it going to lead to is pretty much what I want to get to.
Well, I think it's going to lead to the possibility of SummerSlam. AJ Styles may be your, and now I hope you're sitting down. By SummerSlam, AJ Styles may be your WWE Heavyweight Champion. This is crazy. This is crazy talk. He was the face of TNA forever, and to have him be at this position where he's the number one contender, I'm hoping, if you guys haven't seen it yet and you have the chance to, look online and look at his reaction after winning the match, and the crowd was, chanting him on in Texas. It's heartfelt. It's wonderful. It's one of those little moments in wrestling that make you fall in love with it all over again. I hope nothing but the best for AJ Styles, and I really do believe that at some point he will become the WWE champion. The cream rises to the top usually, and that's what I'm hoping for. I do have to say that I lost my mind when Cesaro came out and did a tearaway tuxedo. I think that's what we're going to call it. That was probably one of the best moments of not only, I would say, the entire weekend. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting what happens. It definitely keeps me enticed of what's in store for the road to come. And, does it make you erase the hate for him losing at Mania, for him being the number 1 contender now? Or I don't know. I'm still kind of mad he didn't win at WrestleMania. But I don't know. What do you think?
Why not both? That's what I said. Why not both? Why couldn't they have done both?
Exactly.
It's one of those things. I said I'm a fan, and I'm a fan of AJ Styles, so I don't know why that couldn't have happened. Somebody out there can call in and say, well, this is why, obviously. And yeah, sure, we can talk about it all day long. But for me, I see AJ actually taking over that Jericho spot someday. And for Jericho not to have lost that match, it's a little strange to me.
Definitely.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
But Jonathan, we talked a lot about Mania weekend, but regardless, the show must go on. We have an incredible guest today. Joining us live in the studio is the Warlord. Joining us on another wrestling podcast is one of the strongest competitors ever to lace up a pair of boots. He's enjoyed lots of success as one half of the Powers of Pain and went on to destroy the competition on his own. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Warlord.
How you doing, guys?
Doing great. I just want to remind everybody, this Friday and Saturday, fans can see you at ECPW in Roselle Park, New Jersey, and Brooklyn, New York for ECPW. Check out ECPW1.com for more info. But more importantly, how's everything going these days?
Everything's going great, man. They're keeping my partner and me really busy, going around the country every weekend. We were just on WrestleMania last Friday doing a bunch of Legends signings and that stuff, and then we were in Houston on Saturday.
Great.
Awesome. Well, as fans of wrestling, Steve and I spent countless hours watching any wrestling we could get our hands on growing up. Was that the same for you? Were you a big fan of wrestling as when you were growing up?
Actually, you know what? I lived in Minneapolis growing up, and I used to watch the old AEWA with Nick Bockwinkel, Billy Robinson, a whole bunch of the old stars up there, and that because we didn't have cable TV at that time. So I actually watched it growing up like that. Then I went on to college, and that's the first time I ever saw WWF come on. Found Superfly Jimmy Snuka, British Bulldogs, all of them, and I just decided at that time, I said, you know what, that'd be pretty cool to maybe be a wrestler someday.
Awesome. Now, you got started in the business by a chance, a meeting with Animal from the Legion of Doom. Had you ever thought about being a wrestler prior to that moment?
I thought about it, but when Animal discovered me, it was a place called The Gym in Clinton, Minnesota. Yeah, we sat down. He said, you know what? He said, I think it'd be really cool, man. You should go ahead and get trained by Eddie Sharkey and come out there and try to become a professional wrestler. I thought, yeah, man, that'd be cool. It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, who actually ended up training you, and what did you think about after your first day of training? Were you having second thoughts at all?
Well, I got trained by Eddie Sharkey, same ones that did the Road Warriors. Did a whole bunch of the guys up from Minnesota. After the first day, I was sore because we didn't have a wrestling ring actually up there. We taped mats together, wrestling mats together on top of concrete floor in the basement of a church. Outside was about 20 below zero. You could see a breath down there, and we would slam each other, do all the stuff on top of that, and just beat the heck out of one another till it was just black and blue. But you loved it so much, you just wanted to keep doing it, whether how much you got hurt, whatever, it didn't matter. You just wanted to keep doing it.
Sure. Now, did you ever how did you decide on the Warlord as your ring name? Is there any unique story behind that one?
That was another one with Animal. We sat down one day, we started kicking on names. He was kicking on names, I was kicking on names, and also he popped up Warlord. It was just a offset from the Road Warriors. He said, I would both look at each other. I said, that's it right there, man. That's a perfect name.
Nice.
That's awesome. Now, after you came up with your name, it says that, you spent some time, you sent some pictures down to Dusty Rhodes, and you were hired by him and started working for Jim Crockett Promotions. What was your first impression of Dusty Rhodes?
Dusty was a unique individual, I didn't really know Dusty. But when you first meet him, there's something about him and that stuff. For somebody that didn't have the body didn't have the look. He had one of the greatest ring personas there ever was as far as charisma. His charisma was incredible. I mean, just what he could do out there, the way he could fit the working class man out there, the way he could talk, the way he could do the things in the ring was incredible. That charisma took him, as far as he could go, and he was just a great wrestler with it.
Sure. Now, do you have any memories of maybe your very first match? Did anything ever stand out to you about your first match?
Yeah, it does. I actually worked with George South. Dusty put me together with Baby Doll, which was with their group, with Dusty and all their group at the time. And I had never really even been in a ring yet. And I was in back trying to get prepared for it. And I go out there. I think I did 3 moves. I pressed over my head. I chopped them. I pinned them. I got up and I said, man, this is pretty cool. I'm getting paid for doing something like this. I like this, man. I want to keep doing this. But I'll tell you what, I was nervous because the older veterans in back, they had me going the whole time in back there. Hey, kid, don't worry about it, man. You get out there, you're only in front of about 2 million people watching at home, so don't worry. At that time, you're going to the bathroom about every 2 minutes.
Well, you also spent some time wrestling in Japan. I can only imagine what their thoughts were, going down the street and seeing someone like you and your size. Were people pretty much parting the ways whenever you walked by in Japan?
Yeah, they do. Those people are very, very, very good people over there. They bow to you a lot. They're very into wrestling. They're not a kid with a boisterous. They're people that when they see something that's a real good or strong move, they clap. And that shows you that they really appreciate a lot. When you get up, they bow to you again. It's really unique over there. I really love going to Japan.
Nice. After Japan, you also came back to Jim Crockett Promotions and got paired with the Barbarian, forming the Powers of Pain. During this time, you started feuding also with the Legion of Doom. Did you guys like working against each other, or like working with the Legion of Doom?
Oh, I love working with Animal Hawk. They're incredible. I mean, you got maybe the best tag team of all time. They changed tag team wrestling with the way they looked, the moves they did, everything that came together. Just like I say, they were the persona of what tag team wrestling was going to at that time. And to go get in the ring with them, work with them, and have incredible matches was just so much fun.
Well, you guys spent a lot of time in Crockett Promotions together, but then you made the move to WWF. How did that move come about? I know that there's some stories out there about you guys leaving after the scaffold matches were presented to you guys, but did Vince and them contact you, or did you guys contact them? How did that all work?
It actually came down to Bob called me one night. I was home. It was on I believe a Thursday night. The way he talks, Bob was, hey, Teddy, Grizzly Adams called me. They want us to fly tomorrow morning to Atlanta. I said, okay, Bob, let's go to Atlanta. We're off tomorrow. So we flew to Atlanta. There was a limo waiting for us. Took us to this big hotel. Took us up to his room. Opened the room door. There sits Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon, and Hulk Hogan. So we sit at the table. They go through the whole spiel. And it's now a Friday at this time. And they go, at the end of that, Bob goes, Bob didn't talk that much back then. I couldn't believe he talked. He goes, Bob goes, when do you want us to start? And they go, we want you to start Monday. And I look at Bob and said, Monday? I said, is that Monday next week or Monday later? No, next Monday. Uh-huh. I said, wow, man, we got all this stuff and that coming up and that, but, Barb wanted to go, and it was a great opportunity at the time, and to be with those three in the same room at the same time, it was cool, man. So we did. Plus, we knew we were going to be the ones falling up that scaffold every night. We were going to take those 20-foot drops every night. Sooner or later, you're going to hurt a leg.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, we hear a lot of people talk about how different other promotions were from the WWF back at that time. What were your initial thoughts of the WWF getting in there?
Listen, at that time, WWF was, when you make it to, the NWA was a stepping stone yet. Mm-hmm. When you make it to WWF, you've made it. You've made it to the elite of the elites, Yep. All I remember is our first time we got to the first TV, and Barb and me walking there, we got our bags in our hands. We're going back to the locker rooms, and here walks by Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ultimate Warrior, And all of a sudden, there comes Randy Savage. And we both like drop our bags. And Randy comes up and goes, "What's up, brother?" And I looked at Barb afterwards. He walked past. I said, "Barb, that's his real voice, man. I can't believe it." This is cool, man. I mean, we've actually made it to the biggest organization in the world, which was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Well, you just mentioned the Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, Demolition, Legion of Doom, and yourselves all had painted faces at that time. When they brought you in, was there ever any talk about you guys not actually having your faces painted?
No, not at all. They actually wanted us to have our faces painted at the time, and I really hadn't painted my face up at that time yet, so I had to try coming up. Actually, Barbarian was actually doing the painting for me at the time, and we were just trying to come up with something that would make sense with what he was doing. And we just kept doing, finally come up with it, and then I had to learn how to do it. And now now I can almost do it in my sleep now all the time.
Now, we mentioned the Legion of Doom earlier, but were there any other favorite tag teams that you got a chance to work with while you were in the WWF?
There was such great tag teams. We got a bunch with the Bushwhackers, the Bolsheviks. Probably one of the best and some of the best matches we ever had was working with the Rockers. I mean, those guys, they put parachutes on for you. I mean, you could throw them 20 feet in the air, they come down a parachute down to the goddamn ring and that stuff, and
sure.
Just a lot of fun with those guys. They were incredible. We worked with the Hart Foundation, which was incredible to work with, Brett and Jimmy at the time. It was a lot of fun working with all that stuff. And of course, Demolition out there. That's what tag team wrestling was, tag team wrestling. And all those tag teams were just incredible. I mean, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, had them in that One Survivor Series. I mean, they all were just incredible tag teams.
Well, you also enlisted the help of Mr. Fuji as a manager, who's obviously one of the greatest managers of all time. What was it like to have him as a manager?
Fuji was great because he knew the psychology of wrestling. We knew how to wrestle, but to actually get psychology out there and to learn why things are the way they are, when you do something, why you do it, that's what Fuji would watch us, and he would teach us. And afterwards, you go back and we go through things, and he would show us, this is what you should have done, this is the way we change it, and do those things, which makes you a far better tag team.
That's great. And now, Mr. Fuji is also known for pulling a lot of ribs on people. Were you ever the target of any of those ribs?
No, thank God. Fuji loved us. I know a lot of people that didn't like it so much. So listen, if Fuji liked you, he wouldn't rib it. If he didn't like you, forget it, man. You weren't sleeping.
Now, after a while, the WWF decided to, break up the Powers of Pain, and you went a little bit of a makeover. What did you think about the mask and the shoulder thing and the staff? Like, were you a fan of it?
It was a neat concept because it was very futuristic. It was a futuristic-looking warrior and that stuff. I liked it and that stuff. I mean, it was a whole different thing from what we were doing, and it took me a little while to get used to it. I think once I got used to it, I was able to start getting it over really good. But like I say, it was a lot different, and also being a singles competitor was a lot different, again, than being a tag team wrestler.
Yeah. Now, whenever they were pitching this to you or telling you that this is the idea that they kind of had for you, was there anything else that they had, or was this pretty much the one idea that they wanted to give you?
That was pretty much the one idea they wanted to get. I remember when I was doing that mask, they flew me up to a place like in upper New York, and it was a place that you'd have to put, they put a straw in my mouth and put plaster of Paris on my face. And I had to sit there and wait, I don't know how many hours that stuff dried on my face, so I could actually have a mask that was formed to the look of my face.
Wow. Now, also, when you broke off from the Barbarian, did you enjoy being a singles wrestler? I mean, because you were tagging for a while, too. Did you like the singles action?
I like both. I love tagging because Barbarian, I learned a lot from Barbarian. I mean, I think he is one of the best big man wrestlers there's ever been. The agility, what he could do. I mean, just the things. I mean, Barbarian's incredible. He's an incredible wrestler for a big man. But also it was nice doing singles, because I got to work some really nice feuds. I got to work a great one. I got to go out there and learn with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Tito Santana. had some great matches. Of course, British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. And I got to have a nice run with Bret Hitman Hart when he had the international belt, which I learned a lot working with Bret. He was that's another guy, just an incredible wrestler.
Well, you are obviously very active still today, but what do you still watch wrestling today? Are you still a fan of it?
I really don't get a chance to watch anymore. It's changed so much. The psychology's not out there anymore. Now it's a lot of big moves. That's become to hurt so much because they're doing all these big moves, all these big bumps and that stuff. And your body can only take so much, and you end up getting hurt all the time. Mm-hmm. They're not actually letting the fans be a part of the match anymore. Settling down, letting get the fans into it, and let them be a part of it and that stuff. I mean, it's just like, it's all boom, 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 boom all the time and that stuff. Not actually settling down and getting the people going with it, and then you do your things out of it. It's changed a lot now.
Definitely. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this weekend you're wrestling for ECPW, and you're doing a lot of conventions, like you said last week, and autograph signings. What's your favorite part about these kind of events?
Meeting the people. Mm-hmm. Seeing the people that really appreciate the wrestling, how much they love your era and that stuff. And actually, they come out just to see that you're in good health yet, you look good, you've been able to take care of yourself and that stuff. And people really appreciate that a lot. They appreciate that you've done all that stuff, and and see you get on the ring and just do a few of the old things that you used to do and that stuff. People really love that.
Well, you've made quite an impact on not only the fans but other wrestlers over the years. How do you feel knowing that you helped mold some of the best wrestlers in the world with the likes of Chris Jericho and Batista?
I love it, man. I mean, I was funny. I haven't seen Chris in a while. We were at a steakhouse in Dallas on Barbarian in a steakhouse on Friday night. Real good steakhouse in Dallas. And Chris Jericho and his family came in there. And I grabbed Chris real quick, and Chris, of course, was telling an old story about me to Barb and our other friend Mikey that was with us. About when I was in Japan, I'm just a person. The only thing I ever want when I travel, just feed me. I want to eat. I just want to eat. I'll do whatever. Just feed me. So it was like one of these little Japan places where Chris and me were at, and we could not. It was like everything rolled up at 7 o'clock, man. I was hot. I was just throwing a fit. I gave a guy a couple $100 just up this goddamn place just to feed me. I didn't care. I wanted to eat that night, And Chris, of course, had it in his book. He was telling those guys, some of the stories. But, it's an honor because Chris is just one hell of a wrestler. The way, what he's done in that stuff, his career and everything else. And, of course, Batista now. I mean, not only is a man, an international superstar in wrestling, now he's an international superstar of movies. I mean, he's doing incredible. And that's an honor coming from Batista, what he put in his book and everything else. And I met him one time in Orlando back in 2008 at WrestleMania. It was a surprise. Someone set me up, and he came around the corner to give me a big hug, which was so cool. I mean, the guy is that's an honor coming from Batista.
Sure. And now, we talked a lot about wrestling today, but other than wrestling, what do you like to do to keep yourself busy these days?
I'm down here in South Florida. I work a lot. I do private security and that stuff, and it keeps me pretty busy down here all the time. I mean, I've been there, like I said, I've been out with Barbarian quite a few weekends on the road again and that. And during the weekdays I do that, and then of course the other time I got my little grandson I've raised since he was born. He's 5 years old now, and that's my best little buddy on this earth.
Awesome.
We can't wait to see you this weekend, but where else can fans keep up with you? Do you keep up with like social media or anything today? Where can fans or promoters find you if they're looking for you?
We're just starting to do a nice little Facebook page. A friend of ours, Mikey in North Carolina, is helping us out. He set up a nice little Facebook page for Powers of Pain. It's showing our bookings. If they want to go ahead and look in the book us, they can contact us on that, and we can get back with them and that stuff. And we're looking, of course, we're older guys, so starting to catch up on the age of technology now. We're going to start getting Twitter coming up. I'm going to start getting that set up. We're going to try and get caught up on the latest technology now so we get caught up with the way everybody else is now.
Well, that's great. Warlord, thank you so much. Once again, everybody listening this weekend, be sure to check out East Coast Pro Wrestling this weekend, Friday and Saturday at Roselle Park, New Jersey. The Powers of Pain are taking on Heavy Duty. Head on over to ecpw1.com for more information. And once again, Saturday in Brooklyn, New York at Our Lady of Guadalupe School. So thank you so much once again, the Warlord. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it a lot.
We want to thank the Warlord for taking time out of his busy schedule for coming on the show today. You can catch him this weekend. He will be in New Jersey and in Brooklyn. For any and all information, please check out ecpw1.com. And, Steve.
Hey.
Next week, we have another wrestling podcast, if you will.
That's right, and we're going to have another amazing guest because do you know who I got on the show?
Well, I'm assuming it's got to be a very big guest.
Jonathan, he's a beast. Let me just put it that way. He is Dan, the Beast Severin, joining us live next week. Wow.
Yeah, the hits just keep on coming. Can't wait to talk to Dan Severin, and I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say.
Now, if you're in the Hudson Valley and you love comic books, action figures, and anything dealing with pop culture, head on over to collectorsrealm.net. You guys can visit them at the Duchess Marketplace on Saturdays and Sundays between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's Duchess Marketplace, located at 453 Route 9 in Fishkill, New York, just south of I-84. Head on over to collectorsrealm.net.
Hey, all you professional wrestling fans out there. We here at Another Wrestling Podcast have just the thing for you. If you've always wanted to join one of those monthly subscription sites that give you all kinds of treats and goodies in the mail, the best one by far is ProWrestlingCrate.com. You can follow them at PWCrate on Twitter or at ProWrestlingCrate on Instagram. Be sure to check them out and subscribe. The cost is nominal and you get some amazing things every month. And you never know what you're going to get. So tell them that Another Wrestling Podcast sent you and enjoy the Pro Wrestling Crate.
Head on over to pwpnation.com. It's a wrestling media website and community that loves professional wrestling. They strive on creating an array of interesting articles and reviews on everything professional wrestling. Head on over to pwpnation.com.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank you all for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
And if you're wondering how to repay us, we have just the thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Hey, and while you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
If you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
If you are an AWP superfan, you can also show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com/AnotherWrestlingPodcast and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do this show without you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.